Hey everybody, this is Rustin Rose of Metal Nation and Metalholic magazine, and joining us tonight, Sarah Teets of MindMaze. Welcome.
Hey, how are you?
I am absolutely wonderful, and congratulations on the new album. The third album, Resolve, comes out this Friday. Fantastic record.
Thank you so much. We're really excited to finally be releasing it.
I've been reading all these wonderful reviews so far, and I'm feeling guilty because I haven't written my own, but I'm spending far more time with this album than I normally do, like as opposed to the previous albums, because this is more of a complete piece. There's so much to digest.
That's actually a good thing if it's, if you're taking longer to do it. I mean, it obviously took us a lot longer to make as opposed to the two, prior albums. So it makes perfect sense that anybody who would be either just listening to it and trying to process the whole thing or writing a review about it, that should take longer also. So that's a good thing.
Well, we're going to talk about Resolve in a minute, but before then, some of the fun stuff. You guys have 4 album release parties this week ahead of your first proper North American tour. You've got to be both excited and perhaps a bit overwhelmed and nervous, I imagine.
Yeah, honestly, I'm less nervous about the actual shows than, all the logistics involved in doing them. All of the stuff that we've got going on, starting with the release shows and then leading up to the tour, it's just a super busy time. And, we're all trying to prep to do all these things and get ready for these shows while, working our normal full-time jobs and trying to go to school and doing all these things. So it's definitely a busy time, and that part's been a little overwhelming, but it is really exciting. I'm sure once we actually get to the shows and start doing these things, it'll be a good feeling, and we'll be really excited about it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic way to kick it all off. And you guys, I don't know if you're doing it for the first 4. I'm sure you probably are. You're taking a keyboardist out with you, a guest keyboardist on this tour, right?
Yes. Now, he won't be there for the CD release shows. It's just going to be the 4 of us for those 4 shows, but he will be with us for the tour that we're doing in May, yes. His name's Jonah. He's from the band MindMaze. So that's definitely be different for us, but we're very excited about that. I think it should add, a lot of things into the music that, we haven't been able to do in the past without a keyboard player. So we're definitely excited about that.
Well, and the new album, Resolve, has more keyboards, piano in it than you've used in the past.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually feel like there's definitely a lot more piano in this album. There's actually some parts of some songs that are definitely piano-driven as opposed to guitar, which, we haven't really done that sort of thing before. I think, the first 2 albums did have a bunch of keyboard bits in there, but they were mostly more kind of synthy keyboards and stuff like that. This album has a lot more organ sounds and yeah, piano parts on it. So, I mean, either way, the older material or the newer material, I definitely think it'll add a lot to it to be able to have a keyboard player doing those parts live for sure.
And of course, you guys did another crowdfunding campaign for this album, which again was a huge success. It's got to feel amazing to have that kind of support.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, we're super thankful about it, for it, because I mean, without the support of the fans that do the Kickstarters, we wouldn't be able to do all the things that we're doing. And I mean, definitely when it comes down to not just making the albums, that part of it, that we might be able to pull that one off on our own, but definitely as far as all this extra stuff like the tour, and we pressed vinyl for this. We actually pressed vinyl as a reward for the last Kickstarter, but the vinyl pressing is of Back from the Edge, the second album. But I mean, most of the stuff that we're doing, we definitely couldn't do it without the support of the fans with the Kickstarter. So I mean, we're just so grateful for that, and every time we do one, it seems to be getting more successful, so that's definitely a good thing as well.
Absolutely. You guys just keep building. The momentum is there, and of course it's because of the music. I mean, you guys make incredible music, and it's funny, every band out there has to deal with the illegal downloading stuff and the torrenting and whatnot, but it's I don't even know how to talk about this diplomatically. It's got to be a slap in the face when a fan gets a hold of the album before it's actually released and uploads it to a torrent site. How do you deal with that?
I mean, the unfortunate thing is a lot of people responded to us acknowledging that happened with, you should track that person down and figure out who it was so like everyone can punish them. And I mean, don't get me wrong, we were very frustrated that thought occurred in our minds when we first found out that this happened because we were so mad about it. But realistically, with the technology that we have at our disposal, we couldn't perfectly identify the exact person that did it. And I certainly wouldn't want to accidentally blame the wrong person for doing something like so horrible. So, I mean, we kind of just have to bite the bullet with that and accept that it happened and not try to actually find the person. But I mean, it was very disappointing because you wouldn't expect to see something like that happen with somebody that is a fan enough of your band to contribute to your Kickstarter. Yeah, like somebody who just is a casual fan or maybe picks stuff up and or isn't that, that much of a fan, but they're just kind of familiar with your band, that would make sense. But somebody that backed the Kickstarter and we did them a favor by giving everybody the stuff ahead of time, then they like turn around and just put it on the internet for everyone to steal. Like, yeah, it is a slap in the face and it is frustrating and it's, it's hard for us because we are angry about it and we feel like something needs to be done, but at the same time, we don't want to go and turn around and punish the hundreds of other people who contributed to the Kickstarter who didn't do that and try to it's hard. We don't want to punish the wrong people for sure. So,
and how much punishment can you really dole out? It's a hard thing all the way around. But let's talk about good stuff. Resolve, your third album, first concept record. How did you guys approach this record differently, being that it's a concept album?
I'll be upfront and open about the fact that the idea to do the concept album and that inspiration was not mine. Doing a concept album, it was something that we all kind of said we wanted to do and like kind of dreamed about, and it's something I wanted to do, but it was definitely Jeff's idea. Like, it was definitely Jeff's, motivation of him wanting to do this specifically and kind of his personal inspiration to want to do it that really kind of drove it for the rest of us. We had actually originally planned on doing the third album as just another regular album. Regular being, I don't know what we may have ended up writing and what it would have sounded like, but we weren't planning on doing the concept album as the next album. But when Rich and Jeff kind of sat down and started really hashing out some of the music and what they were working on, the ideas just kind of started to come for some of these recurring themes and some of these parts that work well for the concept. So it kind of just wasn't planned in advance for this album, but it just kind of sort of went. And, once they decided that was where we were going, they're like, hey, this is what we're doing. And I just kind of got on board with it and went with it. It was definitely different for me writing-wise to try to write lyrics and melodies and stuff for a concept album because everything, if you're going to write a good one, you want everything to kind of tie together and you want the melodies to, be linked to other melodies and other songs and have things reprise. And you kind of just have to think more about the whole picture and the entire album while you're doing certain parts of it, as opposed to just song by song and this is what this song is going to be about and this is what the next song is going to be about, and they're kind of separate. The whole thing you kind of have to keep the entire thing in mind while you're doing each part of it.
And without getting too deeply into it, what is sort of the broad scope picture of what the concept of this album is?
Well, I mean, we chose not to write. A lot of concept albums, will have a big paragraph or a paragraph or 50 in the beginning of it about what it's about. And I mean, this certainly wasn't a concept album that is like a rock opera in the sense that there's characters and you're following along with these characters. It's definitely told from the perspective of one person and inside one person's head. It kind of just follows the progression of what you deal with when you're dealing with emotional loss, whether that is like a breakup, a romantic breakup, or I don't want to be like, this is the breakup album, because it's not just about something like that. It could be about a romantic breakup, but it was also inspired by things that happened with us kind of parting ways with our original drummer, Kalen. Right. And that played into it too. It's not specifically about any of those things, but it just kind of outlines what you think about and what you go through mentally from the moment of, impact of like the news hitting you of this is what's happening, to how you try to process it, to how you try to realize that you have to be strong and you got to get past it, and this is how I'm going to move forward, to feeling like it's totally hopeless and you can't move forward, to actually picking up the pieces and being like, no, I'm going to be better for this. I've learned from it. So yeah, that's kind of, generally speaking, that's what it's about. But we didn't like write a story in the front of the album or anything, because, we kind of wanted people to be able to interpret some of the things about it in their own way and how it might apply to them or experiences they've had. So we didn't get too specific with that.
Right, and that's kind of what I was wondering. It's less plotted or blueprinted than it is more an abstract about human emotions and how we follow through, whether it's the stages of grief or the stages of getting on with your life, and the album title there, that resolve to move forward.
Yeah. I mean, we struggled with trying to name the album for a while, and we eventually decided on Resolve because it kind of has a two-part meaning for what we're talking about with the concept. And in your own personal resolve to, move forward and to have positive change in your life, and to actually resolve the situation. So it kind of just, when we eventually found that title, we're like, yeah, that's the perfect thing. That fits perfectly.
And a musical piece, when it comes to a close, is the resolve. So it all plays together.
Yeah. It means so many different things that are relevant. So it just kind of ended up being the perfect title.
Each album you grow as a vocalist. How did this record challenge you as a vocalist?
Oh, man, this one. I mean, I'm always, after every album, I've always felt proud of what I did, but when we got to the end of this one, I was really like, yeah, like, I really knew, I think in the past with the first two albums, especially with the first album, Mask of Lies, with us having so little experience with recording and stuff, I was kind of timid with what I was doing. I was kind of afraid to really lay the cards on the table because I didn't really know what to expect, and I honestly, like 5 years ago, I wasn't as familiar with my own limitations or, strengths and nuances of my own voice. So over the past 5 years, I've obviously kind of honed into what I'm kind of good at or what I'm capable of a bit more. And now I feel a bit more comfortable with trying to really go for certain things. So with this album, I definitely felt like when we were done that I laid all the cards on the table. Every performance on the album is the best performance I could give. It's all there. And so I was definitely really, really proud of this album. And I feel like the most challenging thing about it was that since it's kind of going up and down on this emotional roller coaster throughout the concept, so do the vocals and so do the style of songs. The first vocal song, I'm singing, super metal, thrashy, kind of heavy, vocals in that. And then as we get further into the album, we have straight up ballads where it's very quiet and very reserved in the beginning. So that contrast, to have to do one to the other, that was definitely a challenge because it went through such a wide range of styles that I was trying to sing.
Which song on the album, whether as a writer or as a vocalist, was most challenging for you to complete and get it the way you wanted it to be?
I mean, for a writer, I honestly really, really struggled with the last song. I mean, if anybody actually really reads the writing credits in the last song, Path to Perseverance, Jeff is credited with writing lyrics on that, because I kind of just struggled because, with the last song, you really want to make sure that everything that you're putting it all out there, you're making sure you're hitting every point that you want to go to kind of sum up this whole thing. And that song's so long too, you know, it really sounds like the closing of this thing in the finale. And I was just like, I want to make sure this is the best that it could be. So we ended up kind of really collaborating more with every other song on the album. It's credited that either Jeff wrote the music or, you know, Jeff and Rich wrote the music, and then I wrote the lyrics. But on that one, he actually kind of helped me out. So that one was one that I really struggled with as a writer, because I wanted to make sure that it was as good as it could be. As far as like singing goes, I'd probably say that One More Moment was the most challenging song vocal wise, just because it really did hit like all the way through my entire range. The beginning of the song starts out in my kind of lower register, and it's very quiet, and then by the end of the song I'm like belting, and I'm singing at like pretty much at the top end highest like notes I can belt. So that song was definitely probably the most challenging vocally.
You guys did your first true video on this record for Sign of Life. What was that experience like?
It was cold. I mean, it was February, and we shot the video, and it was in this actually really cool facility in New Jersey called the Art Factory, it's like an old factory that they kind of transformed into this art studio of sorts, and it's like a huge building where they just have tons of rooms, and some of them they use for actual like art stuff, like people are making sculptures in there, or there's people painting, or there's just, you know, all kinds of different rooms for filming all kinds of things, you know, anything you could imagine. And it was February, and it was like freezing. We were like, I don't know how we're going to make it through this. But once you started to get into it and the actual filming and try to get the energy up like you're performing on stage, then we're like, okay, this isn't so bad. But I mean, it was super nerve-wracking, because everybody knows how harsh people can be on the internet. And it's, you know, we were kind of worried about that. We're like, what happens, you know, if we put this really awesome product out there that we're really proud of and we love, and then people hate it. So I mean, that was definitely, you know, a concern also, but it was mostly just exciting because we'd never done a video before, and we finally got to do that and, you know, have a video. So it definitely was mostly an exciting, good thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool that you guys finally have one, but then that takes you guys a little bit out of the shadows. You now have this piece of media out there beyond the music where people can see you visually instead of just this picture, you know, so they get to see you in your element and everything. So it's pretty cool. But like you said, you can get 10,000 people telling you it's the greatest video they've ever seen, and all it takes is one schmuck. That's a shit. And your egos are like, ah!
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten some creative comments already. I mean, as like, you know, it's like any other part of art, anything that's artistic, it's subjective. Not everyone's going to love everything. And I mean, you know, every video director is going to want to try to do different things for, you know, artistic effect. And the main thing that like our videographer did was he liked to put a bunch of kind of like shaky camera in at the parts of the songs that were really like intense, to just kind of add into it for effect. And some people loved it, and some people really hate it and act like they can't watch the video because they don't like that. But, you know, it's, like I said, everything about art is subjective, and some people are going to love it and some people are going to hate it. And I mean, we've kind of just been trying as hard as possible to just accept that there's going to be critics of everything. And if you're proud of something and you're happy with the product that you put out there, you got to just try not to worry about whatever negative stuff anybody's going to say, because otherwise, you know, the more you worry about all the negative stuff, then you start to feel like you're going crazy trying to, you know, worry about criticism, and that's just not really practical or a good thing to do.
And you've already followed it up with a lyric video for One More Moment. Are there going to be others to follow, or is it you're sort of waiting to see how the album does with the touring and everything? Or
this is going to be it for like videos. This week our label, Inner Wound Recordings, is going to release another track from the album that they're just going to put up as like an official audio that I'm not really going to like say any more about because we don't know exactly when they're going to do it or anything yet. So we're kind of like waiting on that official announcement for that. But they're going to put like an official audio upload up, but it's not going to be like a lyric video or like a real video. We're pretty much done with that stuff. Mostly because our budget has been set for that. So we've reached it and we're out of money now.
Having now completed Resolve, your first concept record, your third album, what is your biggest takeaway from the experience?
At this point, I think the biggest takeaway that I have from all of this is just that every album you do and every experience that we have as a band is going to be a learning experience. And you're going to come back from, whether it's a tour or after you're done making an album or whatever, and literally every time you're going to say, oh, well, we should have done X, Y, and Z. But, I mean, all that really means is you're just learning from it, and it's best not to too harshly judge some of the stuff from the past. So, I mean, I'm just kind of proud of how much we've grown as a band. And 5 years ago, I never would have thought that we'd be not only having like written and recorded a concept album, but that people were actually responding so positively to it and actually saying so many of the great things that they're saying about it. So I'm just proud that we've come so far, and I'm just excited to see where things go from here.
And then, of course, you guys get to hit the road, and the interesting thing there is once you get past the East Coast and maybe the Midwest a little bit, you're hitting all these places you've never been before. How do you build your set? Because you don't get to play very long. How do you build your set for people who have never heard you live?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Because, I mean, if it were up to Jeff, we'd play like 2-hour sets every night. I mean, I don't think so. Actually, he'd probably be tired after that. But we've always been big on trying to be spontaneous live. We don't use any backing tracks or any samples or anything like that. You know, we're all about playing lives and being spontaneous and trying to change things up. And when you're only playing like 5 songs a night, because that's all the time you have, it makes it difficult to try to be spontaneous. And especially with adding a keyboard player into the mix who's, not going to be familiar with all of our material, it kind of makes things a little bit more restricted. But we've kind of just, we have a couple different sets that we've sort of put together that we're probably going to rotate in and out as we go through the tour. And we kind of just tried to pick a good variety from each album so people can kind of just, and we tried to pick some of the songs for sure that have always gone over well live. Particularly, we'll never play a show where we don't play This Holy War because it's always been like a great live song. So we kind of just tried to choose a variety, but also, be smart about making sure we're getting all the like really good live songs in there.
Awesome, Sarah. Thanks so much for taking the time. I'd love to get together with you guys and chat when you get back from the tour, hear how it went, give you guys a little distance from the album and see where your heads are at and talk a little bit more because it's a fantastic record and we barely dipped into it tonight.
Thank you. Yeah, that would definitely be awesome.
All right, I will let you get out of here. Enjoy your evening, enjoy the tour, and we'll talk soon.
All right, awesome. Thank you.